like to pay a couple respects to the people that made me what I am today.
A quick question: Have you guys ever read The Beach by Alex Garland? Did you?
It's the I know the film, right? It's
yeah,
the same.
the Leo DiCaprio film or whatever. He goes to
Nice.
Thailand and they find that hidden island or whatever. But there's something I remember in that book was for him as a traveler, especially traveling through Southeast Asia. He talks about, the character in the book talks about how every person has like their country that represents their personality. So for him, it was like the Philippines. He was the Philippines, even though he's traveling in Thailand. The Philippines was that was like his country. He had kind of ownership to it. And other people, and I used to kind of feel like Thailand was that country for me. And because that was the first country that I ever traveled to. And so if you ask me, Jack, what country are you? If you were a country, what country would you be? Obviously, I'm not going to say America because that's not really an interesting answer. But for me, it was Thailand. But
Man,
what about
I know
you guys?
what you mean. Yeah, I
Does that make
totally
sense?
know what you mean. Like when I was traveling, I remember, like there was the dude I met. He was the soloist guy. Like,
yeah.
that was his jam. That was his thing. And that's where he had all like the big experiences. And for him, his heart was there,
Mm-hmm.
and then I had a friend for many years here that was Palawan. Like that was like, Palawan was like the pinnacle.
Like when you hear that name, that guy comes to mind. It's
Yeah.
like that he is, yeah.
Yeah, and I think he would see that within himself too. Maybe I could, when you started saying this, I was like, nah, that's not a thing. That's kind of cheesy. And I was like, wait, no. I definitely have a country in Southeast Asia that's like mine.
Yeah.
And it's Indonesia. It's the archipelago past Bali. Like Lombok is mine.
That's
like
yours.
that's me. Yeah. And I go
See,
there.
for
I
me,
just
it's
talk to people
Bangkok.
that-
Like I'm Thailand is mine. Yeah.
Yeah.
Kev, what about you? I mean, for you, I
was
would say
thinking
you
about that.
could extend it to East Asia too. You might be Korea, I mean, would that be your?
Well, it's a really cool. I actually really like the question, but I think I need more time to think about it because it's weird. I some of my immediate thoughts actually were even not Asia, but like I love the Netherlands. Greece was still one of my favorite countries to travel to in the past few years.
Sure.
Actually, Greece is great. Amazing wine, great beaches, cool people. I think that's one of my favorite countries in the last 5-6 years. 5-6 years before the pandemic. Okay, it's been a little bit longer,
but it's also
not just favorite though, not favorite. Like
no,
I know, but I love that country when I was
right. But do you
there's
feel
aspects of the culture that match your personality. It's
like my favorite country would be Sri Lanka. Like for travel, I think it's the most beautiful. I love the beaches. I love the dynamic geography. The culture is amazing. Obviously, like meditation is a big part of my life. That's like the most amazing place I've ever been, and I will go back there again and again until the day I die. But what I'm saying is, like when I go to Lombok, I feel home. So Kev, like what is that? What you'd say about Greece? Do you feel like that's, of all the countries that are not your home country, not including Korea either for this immediate example, because that's obviously
at this point, Korea is my home country.
right. Same for me. I would say like Seoul is my definitely my home city. Yeah. But would you call any other country that you've been to, like what's the next one down? What's your second place or whatever? Like what's your
Southeast Asia is great. I've spent a lot of time in Thailand. I love that. That might be it if I'm going Southeast Asia, though still the Netherlands is pretty high up there. I mean, that's where I did a lot of growing as when I studied there as a student, of course. I was there for 6 months. And I mean, the Dutch people are just, really friendly, amazingly tolerant. They're like, anyone, yeah, you're cool, whatever. Some generally pretty relaxed laws about things, of course, as well. But I need one of those, what is it, MBTI? We need an MBTI test for countries.
It's kind of devolving into that. Like Jack, like if you travel anywhere in the world, not including Korean America, and you pop out of the airport, which one do you do? Like that's what I feel when I land in Lombok. When I pop out of the airport, it's like I know these people. I know how to get around. I know a little bit of the language. I know the food. I know where I want to be. Like which place is that for you?
That for me for sure, but this would be the Don Muang airport, which they don't even use anymore. They have a new airport in Thailand, so I'm thinking like Bangkok or Thailand circa early 2000s when I lived there, when I, first moved there, and then how much of a fixture I had become there. Like I knew it so well, and it was like an old shoe. You know what I mean? Like somebody described it to me that way. It's like it's like coming home again. It's a home away from home. And I did get to travel there a couple of years ago, and it did take me it was jarring at first a little bit because my family was with me, my wife, my daughter. But after a couple of days, man, I was like, some of the language came back. So, I was in the taxi. Not that I was fluent, but I was able to, we call it taxi Thai, like taxi Korean. I could get around, and it just felt, it was just very, I was home. It was just very, even though it's just a place of pure chaos, I love it. It's like, I love the chaos of that. It's not, I think I might just need the stimuli of all of that stuff just going crazy, horn honking and traffic jams and people, it's just, I really, really love that atmosphere. And I think it has a lot, I probably would have the same feeling about Malaysia or another country had that been the first place that I had gone 20 years ago. But it's just about where you kind of see, like Kev, you went to the Netherlands. That was one of your first trips overseas, right? Like
was my first trip overseas. Yeah.
It's just you have a lot, you just identify.
And for a long trip too. I was there for
it's
6
where
months,
it's where I
year.
cut my teeth as a traveler, you know what I mean? Because I was and so I guess because the topic today is why we love Seoul, like what we really appreciate about the city of Seoul. I was just wondering if that, just as a example kind of resonated with you at all. And I don't know, I was just thinking about that book today, and that
when
cool.
Kev, when I remember our first year in Seoul where I met you. Okay, so for listeners, Kevin and I, actually all three of us for listeners, we all work at the same place. So we've been coworkers for 12 years. But that first year we had, the first big semester break, and we both went off traveling. And I remember telling you when I came back we had a small conversation in the office, how it felt, it was a little funny to come into Incheon and feel home.
Oh, right.
Do you remember this? Like maybe like some vague memory of this? Like that feeling. It's like you're exhausted, you just traveled, you're still sunburned, and you're all disheveled, but it's okay. You're still 2 hours to get to your apartment. You got to negotiate, subways and taxis and stuff, and you're starving. You got to get a coffee, whatever, but it's okay. It's just like I arrived like in my hometown.
I think that was an interesting time for both of us as well, because we'd both been in Korea at that point for like a year or two. So although Korea was definitely becoming home at that point, that feeling might have been the first time where it was really like, wow, this foreign country to me is home. It actually finally feels like home. I'm coming back to home after being somewhere else crazy. Like I'm back in Korea, which at that point isn't yet home. It's like, wow, I'm back here. Like I can smell some kimchi. That smells great.
It's a place you don't have to negotiate like your next step. When you're traveling, if you're, for listeners that have a lot of backpacking, that's usually one of the first observations new travelers make. I know it was a big thing for me, was like, holy crap, every day you got to be, if you want to be getting around, you got to be thinking, okay, how do I get from point A to point B? What am I going to eat? Where am I going to sleep? What are my objectives? You just kind of always have something brewing. Even if you're going to sit down in a place for a couple of nights, you're still in those days. Every evening you're planning where you're going to go next the next week. And that release coming to Seoul was just like, I know what's coming next. Like that was my first feeling of home here. I think that's where it started. That was the seed to being a new base of operations, a new home.
Yeah, that's weird. And for me, Thailand is that for me. Even after all these years, I've lived in Korea longer than I ever lived in Thailand, but I still feel like that is my second home, because I think it was a time and place thing. But it is funny how I went back to America for just like a year, and I came running back to Korea. and I couldn't wait to get back here. And it was just like a relief to be back in Korea. And so yeah, it's a funny thing. I think a lot of our listeners that are, you know, teaching at Hagwons and have lived here feel the same thing. It's something clicks in your eyes, like, oh my God, you can't go home again. You know, that cliche, you know, you can't really go home. And this is your new home. Accept it for all its quirks.
You start to get used to even the feeling of just like the language. I know, like when I've been traveling around, if I go to Europe or in parts of Southeast Asia, and once you get out of a Korean airplane and you no longer hear Korean, when you still hear English, of course, on the plane, but you don't hear any Korean on the plane anymore. You know, it's in English in whatever local language it is. And you're traveling around. And then once you finally get back on that Korean airplane again, coming home, that's when for me, it's like, oh yeah, this starts to feel normal again. You've always had that English, but I'm starting to get that. I hear that Korean in the background. And even before I spoke Korean, just hearing it in the background,
I'll attest to that.
Feel normal.
I don't even understand what they're saying, but it's music to my ears. You know what I mean?
Right. But it's a huge part of your experience, right? What you see, smell, and hear. Like,
yeah,
totally. I think that's like the phase 2, right? Like of acquiring a new home. I think you, like Jack, you kind of nailed it there. Like, it's one thing I was suggesting, this feeling of comfort, security, ease, safety, coming back into Incheon that after that first, semester working. But I think what Kevin's talking about, that's kind of like the step 2, maybe, or I think you guys are both saying it's like step 2 is where now, I mean, it's always nice to go home, but I mean, I haven't lived in my hometown since I was like 18. So it's rather foreign to me at this point. And when I come back to Incheon, even from America, so America, my country, my nationality, my place of birth and whatever, Seoul is much more home to me. And it's kind of a bittersweet type of thing. I think it'd be a sad thing if my parents are listening, if they don't hear that. No, it might be, a little bit, a little bittersweet. Yeah.
I think my mom would be like, no, that makes sense. Kevin says that at this point. I've now lived in Korea longer than I've lived in any one city in America.
Same. Yeah. I've never lived in fact, this is the longest I've lived in one city, one country, one city, one apartment. One home.
That's the longest you've lived in, because you've only been in that apartment for like 2 years.
Not this one, the one I had in Itaewon.
Yeah. Okay.
So just prior, and the longest career that I've ever had.
Oh yeah, that one for sure.
Yeah, just it's the whole list. So I mean, it makes sense that this is our home. So we should transition and talk about the theme today, like what do we like about Seoul? That's kind of the idea?
Because I think we had a conversation before, Ryan, where you actually mentioned that Seoul is your favorite city. I would love to actually hear why you feel that way. I'm not saying it incredulously, like how could you?
What the heck?
Seoul is a fine city. I love it too. I don't know if I would say it's my favorite city in the world, but I'm really interested in what what aspects.
Yeah, I'd like to hear what you guys have to say about this, because for me, Seoul is really the only big city that I've ever lived in. I've traveled, of course, in other cities, but I lived in Flagstaff, Arizona, which is a pretty small town. I lived in Phoenix, but Phoenix is like, the epitome of urban sprawl, and I was on the very outskirts of it. So that's not really living in a city so much as it is living in Seoul or New York or Chicago or some big city like that. So I only know Seoul as a city I've lived in or other cities that I've traveled through. And I have to admit, although I do like Seoul, at the same time, I don't like Seoul. But that's just because I don't like big cities in general. It's not that I don't like Seoul specifically. I'm not a big city boy.
Well, that's actually one of the things that I find a lot of relief in Seoul, because I like having the conveniences of a big city. We can talk about that in a minute. But one of the things that I like about it is that despite what I imagine is popular stereotypes abroad for people that haven't been here, Seoul is more green than I think a lot of people expect. I'm like a 5-minute walk to Namsan Park. It's a small mountain, but it's central in the city. I'm right next to Seoul Station. and I can get up there. Everywhere I've lived in Korea, from Busan to different locations in Seoul, there's always a really nice park that's in proximity. Plenty of
And
cities
mountains in general.
Yeah, mountains.
Actually,
Yeah,
there's a lot of mountains.
Exactly what I was going to say. So a lot of cities brag about this, right? Chicago, that's one of the big claims to fame, right? There's parks everywhere, but the types of parks here, like Kevin was just about to mention, like they're mountainous. They're not so groomed and artificial. Yeah, they're not artificial. They don't have like these square parks. You can really feel like you're getting away to nature.
Well, not even just a park. Like there's literally a mountain. Like I can walk to it from 15 minutes from my house.
Yeah.
And start going hiking up to the top. And it's a weird mountain from, again, growing up in Arizona, where I get to the top of the mountain, you look out and there's just like a lot of nothing. Here you get to the top of the mountain, there's like apartments. But on the trek up to the top of the mountain, you're proper in the mountains. And it's a decent hike up as well. I mean, it's a couple of hours and it's up. It's not like just a walk. It's a proper hike.
Yeah, and if you come to Seoul, you are going to see it when you will take the subway if you're here. And when you're on the subway, you're going to see people with like hiking poles and full gear because they're getting off the subway to go hiking in a mountain.
Right.
That's a thing.
Yeah.
I love
Although
that.
I will say, I don't think they really need the hiking poles and the full gear for the mountains here.
Yeah, it's a little excessive, but God bless them.
Yeah, I'll wear my sandals.
You know what
I
they're
have
doing.
my hiking sandals, and I'll wear those up the mountain. You can do fine. But yes, you will definitely see.
I mean, my point is like you will see people. I mean, even if they don't have the gear, if you were to ask them and you were to survey everybody on the train, you're going to find people that are taking a train to go hiking, which is just weird. I mean, still weird to me.
It is weird.
The city subway.
Korea is like almost the inversion of like a city like Denver or Los Angeles, because Los Angeles is also a city with low-lying mountains. But the difference is that wealthy people live up in the mountains, Hollywood Hills, Beverly Hills, and they look down on the plebes, that live down in the valley, where and same in Denver, I believe. You go up in the mountains, and this is where the wealthy neighborhoods are in the suburbs, and then down in the valley is where the city is located. In Korea, it's kind of inverted, right? I mean, it's very, there's not, those mountains are kind of developed or underdeveloped, and so they keep them kind of pristine for hiking and for enjoying nature. And that is a really beautiful thing, because God forbid they started building really expensive houses up there and gated communities and just cut people off from that. I don't think Korean people would tolerate that, because there is something about this culture that there is, they do want, like you said, take the train to go to a stop where you can start hiking up a mountain. That's a little bit bizarre, to think about. Usually you drive an hour to get to a mountain,
right, get out of the city.
Yeah, you'd have to get out of the city, but here you can escape the kind of rigmarole of the traffic and all the people and the density, and get to a mountain and hike right up it. And that's a beautiful thing. I like it.
It might seem common, and for people that have been to Korea, be like, yeah, I mean, it's not that crazy, right? I mean, but just compare it for a second. Go ahead and compare that if you live in Manhattan. Okay, you want to go hiking for the day and you want to come back and have dinner by like 6 p.m. How are you going to do that? You're not going to do that. You're in Chicago. How are you going to do that? Well, there's no mountains nearby anyway. But the ability to and I guess that's really the only big point I have of why I think Seoul is my favorite city. Is this? It's the change of environments, and it's just, that's what we're talking about. I love living in this city because in a single day, you can just channel flip, and I love the stimulation. I love being able to you can go from that mountain, and if you got to change of clothes, you can hit the club like directly. Right. It's crazy. For me,
you could hike in a mountain, go to a wine bar, and see a movie, all in the same day. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
it's like,
and you could walk out from the movie. You could go to a club, go dancing, come out. We talked about this before, like even within like a building, you could spend like an entire day within a building, like going to different floors.
Yeah.
You could come out and then go to like a street stand tent, like
Pojangmacha. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, and have some skewers cooked over, some charcoal flames in a little tent. And yeah, just I think it's really, yeah, it suits me. It suits me.
I get that too. And it suits every, they've thought of every level, like every kind of economic tranche, like the Pojangmachang is cheap. You drink soju. It's not gonna break your bank to go there. But if you want to do something higher end and something more expensive, that option is right down the road. I mean, it's all whatever you want. I think that's why I love Asia in general. And I love Japan too. I've been to Osaka a few times, but I think the thing that I like about Osaka is the same thing I like about Seoul. I love the labyrinthine pathways where you don't know, you go this alley and then you take a left and you go down another alley and you're all of a sudden you're just in this labyrinth and and you just don't know what's gonna happen. I went back to America and I was like on my street in the suburbs where everybody goes in their house after work at 5:30 and they shut the door, lock the door, eat dinner, watch American, American Idol, and watch the news, go to sleep, and there's nothing on the street. No people are walking around, nothing is happening. But there's something about Asia that is just 24 hours a day. It's alive. It's just, and that appealed to me within the very first week that I had moved to Asia, and it's something that 20 years later I still love about it. I love that.
Do you think cities like New York, I mean, the city that's famous for never sleeping, compares? Again, I've only traveled through New York. I've been through New York City. We were there for like a couple of nights a few years back, and I really enjoyed New York City. Actually, I thought it was a really cool city. The park was great. We stayed in a hotel kind of in like, I don't know, like Upper West Side, East Side, one of the nicer neighborhoods. Way expensive, of course, but it was like a really cool neighborhood, really chill. I really enjoyed the feeling of New York. I liked that city for the short time that I was there. Again, I can't compare it as a city to live in.
I bet you
city, it was really cool.
That I would love New York too. For the same.
I lived in New York for a few months, actually.
Oh, nice. Okay.
Yeah. I lived in the Bronx, and yeah, I mean, any big city, you're going to have a lot of space and it can be dynamic. New York is very dynamic, but the accessibility in Seoul trumps New York every time. The safety. Safety. Yeah. That's a whole nother category.
Yeah.
Seoul is ridiculously safe.
Very true.
Like, you want to be able to, you talk about that channel flipping. That's not just that there's different environments, it's that they're accessible, like economically accessible. If I'm somewhere, anywhere in Korea, I can open up an app on my phone and, it's basically like Uber, right? But that taxi is not going to break the bank. It's never even a consideration. It's just like, yeah, sure. It's like at most, what is it, $10 and I'm anywhere in the city. So yeah, I think Seoul is way more accessible than New York. And then you stack on top the safety. Like, for example, my buddy was here last Wednesday and it got pretty late, and he didn't want to call a cab. He wanted to walk a little bit, right? He lives in Hongdae. So if anybody knows the city or want to pull up a map, you can take a look. It's a good distance. So I'm at Seoul Station. He's over in Hongdae. So he's like, yeah, it was last Wednesday. So I think it was like a little warmer at night or something. It was kind of peaceful. He's like, yeah, I just want to walk down to the main strip. I'm gonna walk a little bit before I grab a cab. So he didn't call a cab. Next day I talked to him. He's like, he walked all the way home. Okay, big deal, right? I mean, he walked an hour and a half. I mean, anybody can do that. But at 2 a.m., in the middle of a giant city, going through darkened alleys, and like, it's not even a consideration. It's like, yeah, I just walked home. No big deal. Whereas if like I told somebody that, I was hanging out in Manhattan and I want to walk to Brooklyn or something.
Or walk back to the Bronx. Yeah.
Be like, maybe that's not the greatest idea. Right.
Right.
So yeah, like is accessibility and safety definitely ties to that.
Yeah. What about and also, you know, I would say in the same kind of in the same thread, the same vein would be the food prices also. It's not like when you go to Seoul, all of a sudden food and restaurants becomes way more expensive, because I think my understanding is you lived in New York, it can be quite pricey to eat. But in Seoul, it seems like the price, you know, for a meal is no more expensive than it is out in the suburbs of Gyeonggi, where I live. And that's another aspect that I think is really the one thing that I think Seoul, when you talk to people about Seoul, and it's true, is the housing prices. It is expensive. And that I think that actually skews everything when it comes to like how much does it cost to live in the city. Seoul ranks rather high in the globally as being one of the most expensive cities, but it's a little bit deceptive, because if you can figure out the living situation, Seoul could be, you can live on very little, you know, survive really, really well there.
You got to find your niche. You got to find your, you know, what's comfortable. You can live very, I think it's a very frugal, no, I don't want to say frugal because it's not. You can live well and not have to like suffer because of frugality. So like if you want to live in New York, I saw a picture, I think it was on Reddit just last week. Someone posted an image of their apartment in New York. I forget which borough it was in. And it was a shared bathroom. There was no burner, no kitchen.
Right.
There was, you know,
I think I saw that same video.
It was like a bed, a brick wall, and like a shower curtain.
Yeah.
You know,
it's like a dorm room, but maybe worse. You know, yeah.
And $1,000 a month, and you go to the comment thread, and it's kind of like other people from, you know, New York have had those experiences. People are just like, yeah, I mean, that's not crazy. This is just kind of how shit. I mean, it is crazy, but that's a thing that exists here.
Mm-hmm.
So in Seoul, if you're not a moron, you have to dig. You have a lot more work to do, but you can find a better living situation still.
Yeah.
But it is being squeezed. I mean, I've seen it happen with jumping around places here, working with real estate agencies and stuff. The prices here have shot up. But if you can negotiate that, if you can find a way to minimize your housing expenses, you can have, there's cafes that are so reasonable, I would say.
Yeah.
You know?
I mean, I had a friend that lived in, sorry, go ahead, Kevin.
I was gonna say, like, when I travel, I mean, the way that I like to compare what cities are expensive is just generally like how much does a beer cost at like a 7-Eleven here to in America to Thailand or something like that. And I mean, these days actually it's quite cheap. I think there's a more actual like official unofficial index, which is the Big Mac index around the world. You can kind of compare how much does a Big Mac cost in a city. And yeah, in Korea you can do quite well food wise, and like, I mean, if you know how to eat here, finding the small restaurants, you can get like a proper meal for way cheaper than you can do it at home, because you're going to get all the banchan, all the side dishes and things like that as well.
Yeah, I mean, I had a friend that lived in London, and he told me, hey man, you leave your house, that's 20 quid just gone. You know, that's $30 or 25, you know, dollar. And this is like 20 years ago. He's like, that's the price to walk out of your house, you know, to get in the tube, to take the tube. And the difference in Korea is if you can figure out the living situation, if you can sort yourself out that way, the subway is, how much is the subway? Is it $1.70? You know, like $1.50?
Yeah, it's under $2.
Like, it's like $1.50.
Yeah.
I think now, like Cheonobek ones, it's around there.
Yeah. So you've got this wonderful public transportation, which is the other thing that I really appreciate about Seoul. It's why I really love that city. And I'm the only one. Amazing. I don't live in Seoul. I live in Pyeongtaek, which is I guess it's in the outskirts, which is in Gyeonggi-do, which is like a donut that kind of wraps around Seoul, Seoul proper. And so, but even in Pyeongtaek, we've got buses that go just about everywhere you want to go. So, I mean, it's got wonderful public transportation, and that's super cheap. Food, not that expensive. You know, even if you want to eat in a restaurant, you can,
even if you want something nice, you have such a, maybe I don't know why, I'm not like an economist, but it could be because of the density. Mm-hmm. But one of my friends lives in Garosugo, which is a very ritzy type neighborhood, famous for being really expensive. If you want to buy like a $15 Americano, that's where you go.
Right,
Right.
Kind of like a Beverly Hills type of thing. Like
Yeah, I mean, it's
shopping.
a lot of it is absurd, quite honestly. But it's really fun for window shopping and bumming around. Even there, we've found places. I mean, you know, he lives there, so he's always scouting around. There's a new place we just started hitting up where you get, it's like basically a bento box. You get half a fillet of mackerel with like seasoned rice and gim and, you know, a little like kimchi and, you know, a little banchan, whatever. I mean, it'll stuff you, and it's palchon.
Oh, wow. That's $8.
8,000 won.
Yeah,
Yeah.
8,000 won, which in today's is like, yeah, it's like $7.
$7.
Yeah. And that's in that neighborhood. And so that's one of our go-tos. We'll hit that. There's a Mexican place where we're regulars there. We get free guacamole now because we go there so much. We do these massive enchilada platters. I've never been able to finish it. Those are 12,000 won, so about $11.
Wow. Yeah, no, I mean, this is much cheaper than New York. Let's change gears a little bit, because Ryan,
Sure.
I'm kind of using your New York, you know, I like comparing New York to Seoul. What about the people? You know, just like
Before I go on record as like the authority of like who knows New York, I lived there for a little less than 3 months, and it was over a decade ago.
Okay, well, and then we don't have to do like a hard comparison, but how would you describe the personality of the cosmopolitan Seoulite? You know, the person, because I've always found people to be quite pleasant, courteous. It doesn't give me anxiety to travel, even in the morning at like rush hour time. Maybe the only thing that might give me anxiety is when they start pushing you onto the train, like, you know, shoving because they want to close the door, but they can't because it's so full. I mean, that might be the most annoying thing. But hey,
morning subways here are definitely not an experience that you want. If you can avoid that, try and stay off the big lines in the morning. Yeah, and at any rush hour going home as well, same time.
But I've had I think I told this story, I'm not sure, but I was looking for a location and I couldn't find it. And a Korean guy stopped and walked me 3 or 4 blocks out of his way to take me to the place I wanted to go. And I didn't ask him to do that. You know, it was just, he just volunteered that. You know, that helped.
I had a similar experience in Japan, actually. Somebody who spoke zero English and I spoke zero Japanese. Like, they walked me, actually, I was totally lost, and I had my printout from my hostel. Like, I'm trying to go here. And she got off her bike and starts walking me. I was like, okay, where are we going? Cool. And then she took me to the police station, which at first I thought was kind of strange, until I realized that the police, they saw the map and they had a big map on the wall and they were actually helpful.
Oh, they weren't turning
arrested or something. No.
Well, the same thing happened to my wife and me in Milan, except in that case, the guys that were leading us down this back alley made all the hair on the back of my neck stand up. And we were like, you know what? I think we'll find our own way, but thank you very much. And he was really disappointed that we didn't follow him down this back alley. I'm not sure.
Yeah, you know, you can never be too safe. Like, I remember I was in, oh God, this is like before I came to Seoul. I was in the Gulf of Thailand, and I had just found this really nice bungalow up on the rocks, just beautiful view, super cheap. It was like less than $10 a night. They had nobody over there, and the management was really sweet, really nice. I'm traveling solo and whatever. So it's like my first day. I just set up camp. I'm loving that. I get a little scooter. I jam back down to the beaches because this is like up on a bluff. Just awesome. And so I'm down, you know, it's like maybe just after like sunset. And these 2 girls, I think they were from the Netherlands, and they start talking to me, and they're like, do you know a good place to like stay or whatever? You know, because we were talking, I'd been there for a day. I said, well, I just got in, but this place is awesome. It's a little bit of a walk, but I mean, I can't take both you guys on my bike, but we can just walk it. I'm like, okay, cool, let's check it out. I'm not thinking about what this looks like from their perspective. Like we've only been talking for about an hour. So I'm walking with them. It's not like there's lights on, it's a dirt trail.
Mm-hmm. Just a
There's
little
no
bit
light
farther,
right there.
girls. Come on.
That's what I was doing. That's what I was doing. I was like, I was
We're
the
almost
guy.
there.
Yeah, I was the guy. They eventually gave up on me. Like they walked with me for like maybe 15 minutes and they were like, they started like, I saw the fear in their eyes and I'm like,
Yeah.
oh my God, I'm not that, I swear. And they're like, yeah,
know.
that's fine, buddy. And then I had to see them for the rest of the week, on the beach. They're like, yeah, that predator dude over there. Like, oh my God.
And yet they did the right thing. You know what I mean? Like
absolutely. They missed out on a
move.
great accommodations.
Right.
I'm telling you.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was the smart thing to do.
Yeah,
you never
that's
know.
funny.
You never know.
Yeah.
I find a lot of Korean people just keep their heads down. I mean, maybe this is kind of around the world, but everyone's got their earphones in these days. And so, if you need help, if you want to stop someone, especially in Seoul, I mean, if you stop any young person, their English skills probably going to be good enough to get whatever you need, subway station, bathroom, whatever, that's great. In general, though, people just are kind of in their own little world these days. That's just kind of everywhere, though.
Yeah.
Everyone's got their earphones in, everyone's just walking on the street. I mean, everyone's staring at their phones. And so it's everyone, they're kind of just indifferent to you half of the time now, which isn't necessarily a bad thing when you're in a big city. I don't want everyone to be paying attention to me all the time.
If you attempt to speak Korean and you're looking like for directions or help or something, I mean, come on. Could you guys imagine getting blown off in Seoul where someone's like, that doesn't, you never get blown off.
No.
If you approach somebody and speak Korean,
I
they
think
see you're a
the
foreigner,
worst thing that
they're
maybe
gonna
happen would be that they'd run away from you because they'd see a foreigner and they'd be like, ah. But I haven't had that happen in like a decade. So
yeah, I don't know.
I have had that happen. No, trying approaching someone in English.
I think the most like negative reaction I've gotten from people here, like strangers on the street or something, is like the over giddiness, like you ask like a couple of dudes hanging out in the corner smoking cigarettes. You're like, you want to ask for some direction, so you approach them and they both start giggling like little girls, and it's like, what up, man? Like, what? Yeah, that's not even negative. That's just funny because it's you got to picture it. People in this country, anybody that's under the age of 50, they've dedicated so much time to studying English. It's this thing that they all have some awareness of it. And you just throw it at them,
I remember something when I was writing my thesis about communicative learning and stuff like that. I did come across something about there's something in Asia called like uncertainty avoidance. The uncertainty avoidance is a little bit higher than in the West. We don't really, if we're uncertain about a situation, we'll just try, we'll go for it, okay, I look like an asshole, whatever, like it's embarrassing, but I don't know that person. But in the East, it's a little different. The uncertainty avoidance level is a bit higher. And so in those situations where, I'm not sure what the answer is in the classroom, I'm gonna keep my mouth shut. I'm not gonna stick out. I'm not gonna take a gamble because I'm 50-50 on this, because it's just not worth it, not until I'm 100% certain or 98 or whatever, then I'll take the risk. And so I think that happens a lot. We not clash, but like we interact with people who are like, their uncertainty avoidance level is higher than ours is. So we'll take the gamble. But in that case, they kind of giddily laugh. And it's like, I'm not even going to try because, I'm not ready for this yet, And so we get frustrated, but I think it's, you have to kind of understand that from a cultural level that, maybe it's their schooling, like if you don't know the answer, you don't even venture a guess,
That's really interesting. That reminds me, maybe that gives me some insight into something that I've experienced here quite a bit. Have you ever gone looking like on the Cheonggyecheon for like hardware or something? Like you need I know everybody shops online now, but I used to like to bum around down there if you needed to like buy like an extension cord or a drill or a hammer or nails, screws, bolts. It's just like a hardware section in Seoul. It's if you could imagine, for anybody that's not been to Seoul, it's kind of like somebody took 100 Home Depots and just detonated
Mash
them.
them together.
Yeah, and
No,
it's
not mash
great.
them together. Detonate. I think Ryan's got a better. Yeah.
Yeah, it just yeah. And so you'll be walking around, you're in like the brass fittings section because you can see like there's 10 shops next to each other with brass fittings, and you're looking for the specific one, the specific ID or something. And so you walk into a shop, you think he's got what you want, you ask for it, he says, no, I don't have it. And then you ask, hey, do you know where I can find it? You will always get the same answer. No idea. No
Right.
idea. Like it's just absolutely no, not possible. No, just no. And a lot of the times you step out of the shop, the guy next door has it.
Yeah.
And you might feel like, is he just trying to like
is he
why wouldn't
trolling
he give,
me? Is he?
yeah, why wouldn't he give
Yeah.
business to the guy next to him? Like, is that not is he being nasty? Maybe it's like this. He's not certain.
Yeah. And it's better to just say no than to look silly or whatever, or the possibility of looking silly is unacceptable, or their level of acceptability is different. Yeah. I was gonna
Thanks for the reminder. I forgot about that. I studied that as well, and I haven't heard that term in a very long time. It's all flooding back.
Yeah. Well, what about friendships and things like that, like meeting people? Is Seoul a place that I found it a little bit more difficult than when I lived in Thailand. This could also be because I was younger at that time. But also I think Thailand is a little bit more, it's so touristy that they're, when you go out, somebody is gonna, like cheers, and what's your name, some Australian guy or some, a British person or something. And I find that in Korea, just because of the way that like I'm kind of talking about like bars and clubs and stuff, the way it's set up is it's kind of partitioned. Your group is your group, and you don't if you try to join another group, you're kind of seen as an interloper, and you're messing with the atmosphere. So like building friendships and stuff like that, is that more of a challenge in Seoul than maybe other cities?
I think we've talked about this a little bit with the drinking culture, and I agree that just going out to meet random people is different here than back in the States. In terms of just meeting people in general, that's hard to say because I think age is a really big part of it. When I was younger, it was really easy for me to just make friends with people I worked with or with people friends of friends of friends. And these days,
I just turned 45. I couldn't imagine going out in Seoul and trying to meet people. I would look like Ryan. I would feel like the way you did when you're trying to get those girls like, hey, just a little bit farther. Some 45-year-old guy. Hey, nice to meet you. That would be weird in any city, I guess.
I don't know. I think for me, I think it's the same. I think age has changed how my experiences in building new relationships and friends. There's also a move towards some technology, which again, being in a city that's so incredibly dense, it's pretty great. Like if you don't know Meetup, the website, and you're a traveler, you're missing out. It's a really great way to meet people that have mutual interests as you. Seoul Meetup. I know I've used it. Plenty of my friends have used it. It's a great way to make new friends. I have not used the app Bumble, but I know many of my students, we've had discussions about it. It's as I understand it, it's like Tinder, but not for dating. It's just like for meeting people that are down with the things you're down with. So people that play music, it's a way to find band members. I think a lot of that has shifted, but again, being in a big city with this type of density, you're going to have an advantage.
For sure. I mean, just you won't have to go very far. Just geographically, you're going to find people within the couple mile radius that are into the same thing. Come on over, let's hang out.
If your hobby's like weaving, turkey feathers into baskets or something, you'll find somebody because you got over 10 million people.
Someone else there. Into that. I just got into that last week, Ryan. Hook me up.
Start the group. Let's start the group.
Turkey feathers.
The thing, as we wind down the conversation a little bit, something that I do also appreciate about Seoul is not just the nature, and like you said, you can just flip the channel and go from kind of the modern to nature quickly, but also the kind of the mix of old and new. And I think like you said, that you can walk right out your door and you can go to like a market, an outside market that would probably be reminiscent of something that it probably looked the same in 1965 as it does today.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
When I go downstairs, like I live in a house. Okay, so you got to picture this.
Yeah.
We're in the upper. Grandma, there's a little grandma that we're renting from. She owns this joint. She lives downstairs, and there's a courtyard, and it's got like a big metal gate. And when I open that gate, it's the market directly, and there's like strings hanging and fish drying, and yeah,
that's been doing it that way for 700 years or whatever.
Yeah, my favorite is like where part of the road is actually like covered in tarps, and people have laid out like peppers and vegetables to dry. So you can't drive your car there. You drive over somebody's cucumbers, or a zucchini.
Even apartment complexes in my neighborhood, they'll just take a parking spot and put a tarp down and dry out the peppers. Yeah, some grandma, and it's just exactly. Like that's. I mean, it's hilarious. We have a market here in Pyeongtaek, an outside market, and if you want to buy fresh fruits and vegetables and meat and stuff like that, I mean, this is where you go and there's like literally like it looks cartoonish, but there's like a pig's head, just a full pig's head just out on display, and I know it gave my
That's
dog
probably for
nightmares.
Some shamanistic rituals. So go back
maybe
to that episode if you want to learn more there.
Yeah, and I mean not to like be like hyperbolic about like Seoul is the greatest city ever. There's other cities that I would say are better for certain things. Like if I'm traveling and I want to see more like dynamic cuisine, markets in particular is what I'm thinking as we're talking about markets. I don't think Korea has the best markets in the world and most impressive. I think going to a place like Kuala Lumpur, I think the cuisine is way more dynamic. Singapore, the markets, the food stalls and stuff in Taipei are way more dynamic in Taipei. More food varieties is what I mean by that. Like in Korea, if you go to a market here in like my neighborhood, if I go like Pyeongtaek, a market in your neighborhood, it's like same thing, slightly different flavor. It's almost the same thing.
You'll see the same cabbage and the same carrots and the same, like little fruit stall.
There's reasons to explore around. I mean, there's a market that's dedicated more to like vegetables, and there's one that's more like just Gyeonggi. You have there's differences, but not like I've seen in other cities. But that said, it's still really nice to be in this place that's really urban and really modern, and but you still have all this I don't know how to say it, color. A lot of color.
I think one thing that we're missing out on as well that we haven't discussed is, and I don't know how to really compare this with other cities, but in Korea, in Seoul especially, it's something that I remember noticing even years ago. There's just so much entertainment, right? Think of all the bangs, all the rooms around, right? There's norebangs, there's PC bangs, you can go play games, there's places to go play pool, there's places to go play PlayStation, there's
screen golf, screen baseball,
screen baseball, right? Like you walk down any random, I mean not any random street, but like in any of the kind of like busier neighborhoods, you go to like any Hongdae Street or Gangnam Street, turn down some back alley, and there's a batting cage up above you, and you just look around and there's also like 5 places to go sing with your friends, there's a couple places to go play video games, there's an arcade just down the corner. Like if you want to have a night out, not even a drinking night out, although that's part of this half the time as well, but if you just want to do something with your friends, it's impossible to not be bored if that's what you want. If you're looking for some activity of some kind, you can find it. There's some activity.
That's a great point.
It's almost gotten to the point, being here for so many years, like you almost forget how amazing that really is. Like everything you just listed there, I can go downstairs and walk to in under 5 minutes. Like
Right. You
this,
probably have
like,
all of those things in your neighborhood.
yeah, they're all right here. Like right here. I can hit all those things. I remember when I came to Korea originally, I lived in Busan. I was hanging with some friends in Gyeonggi, and we were at a pub that we were just meeting. So we were meeting. We didn't have dinner yet. We're gonna have like a pint before going to dinner and meeting the other half of the crew. And some people bailed, and it was like it was boring. We're just like sipping on a beer. And one of my friends is like, "Hey, you want to go to a jjimjilbang?" And I was like, "I didn't know what this was yet." You know, I mean,
Yeah.
it's like it's like a sauna. I'm like, "What?" It's like, we'll chill out before we go to dinner. I'm like, "All right, go with the flow." Left our half drank beers there, went downstairs. Now I'm naked in a hot tub, you know, and we're like, okay, we chill out, relax for like an hour. It's like, okay, now let's go to have dinner. All right, put our clothes back on and sit
Nice.
down and have fire on the table, eating, you know, yeah, it's just,
Yeah.
yeah.
I've got
You know-
jjimjilbangs are something that I enjoy them when I've gone to them, and that's probably like less than 10 times total in the 12 years that I've been here. The more than 12 years that I've been here. Like jjimjilbangs they're cool, but I just don't use them. But that's the same idea though, Ryan. You're right. There's just so many fun little unique ways to just pass some time here.
If you live in Seoul and you say I'm bored, I don't believe you. You're lying. You're lying to yourself, because there is they're just they've created the experience is all packaged for you. You know what I mean? Like it literally is. You don't have to bring your own baseball bat. You don't have to bring your glove or anything like that. I mean, you just have to show up, and everything is kind of just set up for you. So I do love that, you know, that aspect of Korean culture where they just create the whole experience is all you have to do is show up. And so
yeah,
that's a little bit different than hobbies in the West, where you like, you know, my parents play tennis and I play a little bit of tennis, but then you gotta buy the tennis equipment, you gotta drive to the court, you gotta wait.
I would like to
get
compare
up, you know.
this, and this is something that I don't know about in big cities elsewhere, but I mean, like, I can think of, for example, escape rooms, right? So that's a thing that I still have yet to experience, and I would love to try one of these days. Actually, need to get around to it. We'll have to do a Soul Patch escape room episode.
Right.
We'll record ourselves getting lost, but like there's escape rooms in Korea, you know, and there's singing rooms and there's all these other rooms, but escape rooms are definitely a thing in the States as well. Like I know I've read about them. So there are these type of activities in, you know, I'm sure there's escape rooms in Chicago and New York and Seattle, etc. But so I can't compare it exactly, but it feels like, you know, there's less of these just everything. You know, there's not a street that you can just turn down any random street and find 10 things to do there. Escape room is more of a like, let's go, this is the activity for today. And maybe I'm wrong, and if someone who lives in a Western city that I haven't visited in a very long time can correct me, and maybe there are more things that I'm not thinking of.
And
but
there's still things here that I'm discovering after living in the city for 12 years. There's still things like Kev, were you with us? I don't remember. We were in Garos, I think it was Garosuga, and it was blazing hot. It was summer, and just we're with like a group of people and everybody's just sweating out. And my friend's girlfriend was like, "Hey, let's take a shortcut through here." And it was just cutting through a building versus going around the block. And we went down some stairs, went through the bottom level and up. That bottom level was a full-size ice skating rink with a hockey match.
No way.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. And it was like, you can go ice skating here? It's like, how much? It's like, you know, $5 or $10. You can just, they rent you skates, whatever. Yeah. Like in July, it was just like, I mean, there's plenty of ice skating rinks in other cities in the world. I know, but it's just the accessibility and just how it hits you in the face all the time. I love it.
Yeah. It's I had a similar experience. When my daughter was very young, we were visiting my mother-in-law who lives in Mokdong, which is I guess northeastern Seoul, I guess, a little bit. Kinda a little bit, yeah. And you know, she was getting a little bit bored at home, so we took a walk and we just went in this room, and there was a whole trampoline play park inside this building. Just you turn left and it was like, oh, here $2 or $3 and you can just go jump on all these like 10 or 15 trampolines with, I mean, it's just, they really do make an effort to provide entertainment for people, and you just never know.
Yeah,
and it's the surprise element and the randomness of it is what I'm never, Seoul never ceases to surprise me. And I think that's what I really love about it. And that's I think why we live this life, this lifestyle, is because we love that element of surprise. And yeah.
Nice.
So
yeah.
I don't know. What do you guys think?
Can still surprise us. That is something that's very true. I'll say even after all this time, you no matter how many times you've been around the city, you haven't seen even half of it probably.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. By the time you get around to the other half, the first half's changed. So
and that's also true.
Kind of keeps going.
You guys ever been to a VR room before? Those are pretty fun.
I haven't yet.
Check out one of those. That was great. Yeah. So that's my pitch right there. I don't know. I think we covered it, man. We did Goodbye Seoul, I think. So
I Soul You.
I Soul You.
That's why Seoul is the soul of Asia. I think that's a much better.
I think they should. I think the Soul Patch is better though than I Soul You. But that's just
Soul Patch is just a small part of Seoul. It's an important
the
part,
Soul Patch would be maybe the Gangnam area. I'm not sure. Bundang.
Well, hey, before you do the send off, I wanted to jump in as part of the send off for listeners out there. We're always pretty thirsty for mail, so send us some mail. But in particular, you can tell if you're listening, you can tell the three of us were pretty stoked on in general we have a very positive outlook about Korea in general. We've had positive experiences here, but we also love, being able to give advice and help people. So if you've got questions, straight up, just ask us maybe a specific thing, not what should I do if I come to Seoul? But if you have a certain question, hey, I want to play hockey when I arrive in Seoul, send us a message. Love to help out people, love to give advice.
Oh yeah. We'll do a little,
and if we don't know, it's fun for us to learn.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. And it's probably much more easy for us to figure those things out, being that we've been here for a while. So
for sure. True. Actually, I know a couple of guys that play hockey that did play hockey here. So and if you're gonna send us that message, send it to thesoulpatch@gmail.com. That's our email address, and it's in the description. You can go to our website, thesoulpatch.com. You can reach out to us on our social. We have an Instagram, we have Twitter. You could make a comment on our YouTube page in the comment section. We also have added a new page to our website with some teacher resources. So right now there's I'll leave it up there for indefinitely, but there's a free ebook. Let's talk about it. A discussion book for Korean English language learners. So if you're teaching a conversation class or something and you need a quick lesson in a can, you can just download that book for free. It's in PDF form, and just another resource to use. And I'll be adding to that page as well. And again, that's on our website, thesoulpatch.com. So you just go there, you can find everything, download, the episodes and the free ebook, send us a message. We'd love to hear from you. And we'll catch you next week on The Patch. Thanks, everybody. Bye-bye.
Have a good day.
I'd like to pay a couple respects to the people that made me what I am today.
Here.
Kiss all my love, kiss all my love.
The quiet man.
Kiss all my love, kiss all my love.
Dopamine. Jim.
Kiss all my love, kiss all my love, kiss all my love.
The brain.
Kiss all my love, kiss all my love.
Hey Bobby, let the bass go.